Okay. Good afternoon. This is the second SGE class, and today we are looking at the strategic management. So I do hope that you have your handouts. We've already sent them to you and the past papers. So that's what we're going to look at. So we are starting with strategic management. I'll do an overview of strategic management, and later on we shall go to environmental analysis. So that is what we shall conclude with for today's class. So I do hope that all of you are ready. You can hear me? I want to talk to, I can see Samuel, Muriki, Sharon. Can you hear me? Has it can't hear? No video displayed? Who has the handout? Yes, yes. Most of them can hear me. So okay. So when it comes to strategic management, we are going to start asking ourselves, what is a strategy? From the handout, you can see what is a strategy. And a strategy, when you're defining the term strategy, I would expect the term plan to appear in your definition. So it is a plan of action assigned to achieve a specific goal. So a plan of action assigned to achieve a specific goal. Then we ask ourselves, what is strategic management? Then strategic management involves formulation and implementation of the major goals of an organization formulated by the top management. Formulation and implementation of the major goals of the organization formulated by the top management. Then we can proceed to understand the characteristics. So definitely we say that these major goals, they are designed or they are formulated by the top management. So therefore, the first characteristic is that we can say it takes place at the top level. So it is the top management that designs these goals. The second characteristic is that when it comes to top management, note that they are the ones to design these goals, they are the ones to allocate the budget, and therefore involves major allocation of large amount of company resources. So that's the second characteristic. Then it is long-term in nature, and also it is future-oriented. If you can remember, where we talked about the characteristics, the difference between management and administration, though we are yet to do that topic on management, we shall see that administration is at the top level, management is at the middle and the lower level. So this strategic management is happening at the top level. Why should organizations have or pursue strategic management? So if you can remember, in the last class, we talked about corporate governance. And lack of corporate strategy is a poor corporate governance system. So an organization should always pursue strategic management. An organization should design strategic management initiatives. So one of the benefits is that it ensures optimal utilization of organization resources. That's number one. Number two, it also leads to effective decision-making, because you are going to make decisions based on what? Based on the strategic plan that you've designed as an organization. Rather than making decisions based on individuals, we make decisions based on the strategic papers that we have designed as an organization. So it leads to effective decision-making. Number three, it also increases employee satisfaction, because this strategic plan is the one that you will use even to do employees training. And number four, it also increases organizational performance. It increases organizational performance because definitely with the strategic plan, as we shall see in the next subtopic, you definitely have a strategy, you implement and evaluate the achievement of that strategy. So if you know that you have targets, then you have to perform well, and consequently, it increases the organizational performance. Then we look at the strategic management process. When it comes to the strategic management process, definitely what we are trying to look at is to understand the few subtopics that we shall be covering from now henceforth. And the very first subtopic I look at is environmental analysis. And consequently, the first step in strategic management is environmental analysis. And as we look at these, I would prefer that you have an idea, you must have something in mind of a strategic plan you can execute. Is it in your business? Is it in your organization? A strategic plan that you can execute, even in the political arena, if you love politics, then a strategic plan that you can execute, you need to first of all understand the environment. In which environment are you operating in? If it is in your business, when you want to put up a business, you need to first of all do an environmental scanning. You need to do some research. You need to do some feasibility study before you start that business. Before you formulate the plan, you come up with the mission and vision for your business, you need to understand in which environment am I operating in. So that's the very first step in strategic management. The second step, so when it comes to environmental analysis, definitely is monitoring of information from internal and external environment, and it is managing the information to the relevant persons. So we need, and this is a continuous process, it needs to be done regularly. But then before you start a strategic plan, definitely you need to do a powerful environmental analysis. Then once you understand the environment, then you can proceed to do a strategy formulation. And when it comes to strategy formulation, it's choosing the most appropriate course of action. Choosing the most appropriate course of action. Then you need to come up with several options. Definitely from the environmental analysis, you're able to make decisions because you have information. And then once you choose the most appropriate course of action, the next step is strategy implementation. And when it comes to strategy implementation, it means execution of the plans and strategies. Execution of the plans and strategies. So it is execution. I want you to pick the key terms. And finally, we have strategy evaluation. And strategy evaluation means determining the effectiveness of a given strategy. Is it working as intended? That's the question that you ask yourself. So we can therefore pick the key terms. Environmental analysis, we said, it means monitoring information from the environment and communicating it to the relevant persons. When it comes to formulation, we are choosing the most appropriate course of action. When it comes to implementation, execution of the chosen strategy. And when it comes to evaluation, monitoring whether the strategy is working as intended. So that is what it means to do, that is the process of strategic management. So that question was there in November 2015, question 2A. So we can go to our past papers to see how was it phrased. So November 2015, question 2A. November 2015, question 2A. November 2015, question 2A. So the question asks, we are asked to describe the process followed in strategic planning and management. To describe the process followed in strategic planning and management. So those are the steps that you describe, from environmental analysis to strategy formulation, to strategy implementation, and finally to strategy monitoring and evaluation. So those are the 4 steps that you're supposed to describe so that you can be able to score the 7 marks, So we then proceed to the next thing. We ask from the handout, we look at the limitations to strategic management. So when it comes to strategic management, it definitely has limitations. And there's something I always tell students, this question on limitations, SGE, it's a very common paper. And any time it is asked, always start with it's time consuming, it's costly, and it has there is lack of skilled staff to do that thing. Anytime a question on limitations, those 3 answers never lack in the marking scheme. So this question, there was a question on limitations. It was limitations of SWOT analysis. That was in May 2019. And in November 2019, this question on limitations to strategic planning was there. And definitely those were common answers. So when it comes to limitations to strategic management, one of the limitations is rapid change in the environment. Let's say this year, the beginning of this year, you had come up with a strategic plan. Then all of a sudden, Corona has come. It has really changed everything. So it has really unsettled. It has really changed the strategy you had because you cannot be able to implement it because the environment has changed. The second one is internal inflexibility. And an example of internal inflexibility is resistance to change. Employees do not accept that strategy as you've designed it. So they resist it. So what do you do? So they frustrate the plans as you had designed. The third one is external flexibilities, for instance, rigid political environment. And number four, it's also time consuming. It consumes a lot of time. You have to do a lot of seminars. You have to do a lot of environmental analysis. So the staff are not involved in the day-to-day activities. They definitely have to, first of all, do the strategy. So it consumes a lot of time. The fourth one, it's also costly. It's very costly to implement, to have a powerful strategic plan. It is costly. It requires a budget to design, and therefore it is costly. And finally, employees lack management skills. They lack strategic management skills. So we can go to that question in the past papers, November 2019, question 2A. November 2019, question 2A. November 2019, question 2A. So let's see the question. November 2019, question 2A. We are told to summarize 5 limitations. We are told to summarize 5 limitations of strategic management, 5 marks. So you would have scored the 5 marks because I think we even have more than 5 points. So that is the question. That's the question. So we can proceed. We can proceed. We can proceed to levels of strategy. Levels of strategy. So when it comes to levels of strategy, this is very important for you to understand. And kindly when I ask these questions, because even I was supposed to start asking questions for the last lesson. At times I find it difficult that you teach something, the next time you ask a question, people are not able to answer. It is a very popular question, as we shall see. I have even indicated in the past papers, we are going to see the past papers. It was tested in May 2019 and also May 2017. And this is for you to understand strategy, because you need to understand it in a context. You need to have a context. Even if you are a business person, businessman or a business lady, definitely first of all go to your business as at now and start coming up with a strategy. See it from a context rather than cramming these notes, because SG becomes very boring if you start cramming notes. But if you look at it from an environment, a given environment, I said if you love politics, then see yourself as the strategist of that politician you love. If you love business, see yourself as a strategist for your business. That is how we are supposed to look at things rather than cramming these notes. So when it comes to even the process of strategic management, I hope you have seen, if from your business, I do an environmental analysis, I do a formulation, I come up with a mission and vision, I do implementation, I execute the plan, I monitor and evaluate. Then I'm looking at the effectiveness of that plan. So we need to see at it from that level, from a context. So when it comes to levels of strategy, it happens at 4 levels. It happens at 1, we do this strategy at the corporate level. We do it at the corporate level. 2, we do it at the business level. We do it at the business level. 3, we do it at the operational level. We do it at the operational level. And number 4, we do it at the functional level. The functional level. So imagine I want to pick an organization that we all are aware of. we are aware of an organization like Safaricom. At Safaricom, we have Peter Degwa at the top level. He's the CEO. So at the top level, we have the CEO. So once we have the CEO, that is the corporate level. They design the strategy of the organization as a whole. They design the strategy of the organization as a whole. That is the corporate level. So meaning at the corporate level, we are designing the strategy of the organization as a whole. That's the corporate level. Later on, we shall see with the tools that we use. At the corporate level, we use, so meaning designing the strategy of the organization as a whole. Dego is the one who is deciding on Safaricom, M-Pesa, Kizatune, all those businesses. He's the one in charge. So meaning the corporate level takes place at the top level. It happens at the top level. So then we move to the next one, which is the business level. So we move to the next one. At the business level, we are looking at the specific business units or single business units. And when it comes to the business level, the major function of the business level is to generate competitive strategies. So meaning at the business level, we are generating competitive strategies. We are generating competitive strategies. So that's the only, so meaning at the business level, it is also called competitive level strategy. It defines how each individual business will gain a competitive advantage. Now, we are not at the top level now. At Safaricom now we moved to M-Pesa only. So there is the single business unit called M-Pesa. The work of the manager in charge of M-Pesa is to design a competitive strategy that will ensure that they have a competitive advantage, over their competitors. That's the work at the competitive level, to design a competitive strategy to gain a competitive advantage over the competitors. So that's the work of the business level. And when we talk of the business level, we use a tool called Porter's Generic Strategies. We use a tool called Porter's Generic Strategies. Porter's Generic Strategies. So meaning to gain a competitive advantage, we use Porter's Generic Strategies. We use the Porter's Generic Strategies. And these Porter's Generic Strategies, they are four. I'm now looking at the business level. And the business level, we have said, here we are trying to gain a competitive advantage. And we are now at a single business unit. This person is not deciding the business of an organization as a whole. That's the work of the corporate level. At the business level, decisions made for a single business unit to gain a competitive advantage. And the tool or the model we use the Porter's Generic Strategies. Note that the word Porter, this is a scholar of strategic management. And Porter, we are going to use him a lot. So note, and the examiner might ask you to discuss the Porter's 5 forces analysis. And the issue with students is that when they are asked about Porter, you'll find a student discussing at the Porter's 5 forces analysis, he discusses the Porter's generic strategy. There is also Porter's diamond for quality management, a student discussing. So you need to understand, as we proceed, today we are going to look at Porter twice. As we proceed from Porter's generic strategies, you need to understand the 4 strategies. The 4 strategies for Porter, that is, he gives us the strategies to gain a competitive advantage. Strategies to gain a competitive advantage. Strategies to gain a competitive advantage. According to Porter, there are 4, and one is cost leadership. Cost leadership. I want to give you a practical example. Like now, you'll find that most of the colleges charging 25,000, others 20,000, and KC charging maybe 16,000. So meaning we are trying to put our cost as low as possible so that you can prefer that college that is charging 16,000. So keeping the cost as low as possible. So you ensure that the cost of production is as low as possible so that you can be able to gain a competitive advantage. And which are these competitive advantage? In terms of pricing, you are able to price favorably. In terms of giving discounts, in terms of giving out giveaways, you give away free trials. Meaning that when it comes to cost leadership, it is keeping costs as low as possible in the process of production so that in the long run, you can be able to have a competitive advantage. That is what it means by cost leadership. The second one is differentiation. Differentiation. And differentiation is where you ensure that your products are unique compared to those of the competitor. For instance, when you go to supermarkets, you buy Hostess at 150 shillings, whereas the other Uga that I always give example is that one that you buy at 70 bob. Why would you buy Hostess? Because you feel it has unique features. So why would you buy an Oppo phone at a higher cost compared to Infinix? Because it's highly differentiated. And how do we achieve differentiation? We achieve differentiation through many ways. For instance, you can achieve differentiation through, let's look at Oppo phone. People prefer it because of the camera. It has a very nice camera. So special features, you can achieve differentiation through by having special features. You can achieve differentiation through warranty. You can provide warranty. You can provide warranty. You can achieve differentiation through premium pricing. At times, people go to supermarkets and they buy those products that are highly priced, feeling that they have more quality. Even though the quality is the same, they feel that, well, let me buy this one. It's of high quality than the others. Definitely, you also achieve differentiation through after-sale service. After-sale service. So people prefer your products because you are providing after-sale service. You also achieve differentiation through branding. The way you brand your products, the way you package them, we can combine them, branding and packaging. So that is the ways that you are able to achieve a competitive advantage through differentiation. And number 3, strategy, Ada Potter's generic strategy is cost focus. Cost focus. And when it comes to cost focus, it's the same thing to do with cost leadership, but now you are targeting a specific market niche. So use of cost leadership on a specific market niche, on a specific market niche. Use of cost leadership on a specific market niche. I remember we always laugh with our class. We always say, like now in universities, you'll find that those soda, you can't find Coca-Cola, you can't find Coca-Cola products. They are I think Merida. Those are the sodas. So they are now targeting a specific market niche because they know their products will be bought in those supermarkets. They are those products that you take to supermarkets near Kibera. They will go very fast. But then let's say that you can't go to Kibera and take to them products that are highly differentiated. For them, they need, if it's phones, take to them the Mulikamwizi, they're going to buy. So that is, you are targeting a specific market niche using cost leadership. And finally is differentiation focus. And when it comes to differentiation focus, you use differentiation strategy. You use differentiation strategy on a specific market niche. Differentiation focus, you use differentiation strategy on a specific market niche. Use of differentiation on a specific market niche. Use of differentiation on a specific market niche. On a specific market niche. So up to that point, we understand the levels of strategy And consequently, we can pick our past papers to see whether that question has been tested. We can look at May 2019, question 3C. May 2019, question 3C. So we can go to May 2019, question 3C. We are told it was 2 marks. It was 2 marks. It was 2 marks. So we ask ourselves, we are told May 2019, question 3C, we are told to analyze, two levels in an organization at which strategic evaluation is done. So it can be done at the corporate level or at the business level. Any of those, it can be done at the corporate level or at the business level. So you can answer either at the corporate level or at the business level. Hopefully, I hope you can still recall the levels of strategy. We have not discussed operational and functional, so we are going to discuss them. But then I hope you can now discuss corporate and business. Corporate, it decides at this level, they decide the strategy of the business as a whole, and it happens at the top level. And all those characteristics of strategic management, you can feature them at the corporate level. For instance, it involves allocation of large amount of organizational resources. Then at the business level, the main function is to generate a competitive advantage. And the most common tool used is the Porter's generic strategies. So if we want to gain a competitive advantage, then we are supposed to use the Porter's generic strategies, which are, we have cost leadership, we have differentiation, we have cost focus, and we have differentiation focus. It's good to remind ourselves. Can we remind ourselves of the process of strategic management? We can try to see whether you can remember. It's good that we go back and see whether you can remember. Don't even look at the handout on yourself, from environmental analysis to strategy formulation, to strategy implementation, to strategy monitoring and evaluation. Limitations, you still need to remember. So kindly review that handout. So I have advised you're supposed to look at it in the context. So I can see, yeah, so you need to look at it that way. So we now move to the other level, at the functional level. So at the functional level, I have combined of functional and operational. Most of the times we always say it supports both the business and the corporate level. Only that now operational, it's to do with operational activities of the organization, whereas the functional is to do with the functional departments, human resource, finance, HR. So when you're discussing the functional level, you need to say that it deals with the functional departments of an organization. For instance, we have the human resource, we have the finance and accounting, we have the sales and marketing, among other departments. Whereas the operational level, it is to provide support services to both the business and the corporate level. So those are the levels of strategy. So levels of strategy, another examiner might also ask you types of strategies. So types of strategies, we have the corporate strategies, business strategies, functional strategies, or operational strategies. So we need to then go to, we see the question that was tested on that. That is May 2017, question 2B. May 2017, question 2B. May 2017, question 2B. May 2017, question 2B. We are asked to discuss the 4 hierarchical levels of strategy. Then you are supposed to discuss the 4 hierarchical levels, definitely from the corporate level to the business level to the functional level to the operational level. Hopefully up to that point we are together. So I can't see any question. You can ask questions. You can ask, I'm told to repeat explanation on cost leadership. And when it comes to cost leadership, we've said it is keeping your costs as low as possible so that you, in the long run, you gain a competitive advantage. Keeping your costs as low as possible so that in the long run, you gain a competitive advantage. So in the manufacturing process, you are able to keep, for instance, organizations that are able to keep their costs as low as possible. You have few employees in the organization. Definitely the production process is shortened so that you are able to keep your cost as low as possible. Ask yourself, for instance, there is the sunny water, which goes at 40 shillings, and there's another bottle of water that will go at 20 bob. This going at 20 shillings, I don't think it goes through the same processes as the Dasani water. Meaning the Dasani water, the other brand, they are using cost leadership so that they are able to price their products favorably. So meaning that the process of production is they are keeping their cost as low as possible in the production process. Whereas when it comes to Dasani water, it is highly differentiated. They will even tell you the water goes through osmotic processes and it is filtered 4 times and it has been added with some minerals into it. This water is so special that you feel you are taking the right brand because it is differentiated. So the cost leadership is somehow, it's kind of the opposite of differentiation. So I hope I'm understood. Cost leadership is keeping your costs as low as possible in the production process so that in the long run, you are able to gain certain competitive advantage. And that those competitive advantages include pricing. You are able to price your products more favorably than the competitor. You are able to give discounts. You are able to give aways. You are able to give free trials to the consumers. So that's how cost leadership comes in when it comes to gaining a competitive advantage. Another examiner might ask you to discuss ways of gaining competitive advantage. Definitely those are the same points that you should discuss. If he's not specific, you can discuss as many points as possible, but if he's specific on Porter's generic, and I mention again, Porter's generic strategies, then I would expect you to discuss those 4 strategies. So on that basis, I hope that one is okay. Then is it possible to have both cost leadership and differentiation? I feel you must choose one. You must choose one because definitely if you're going to lower to price your products more favorably than those of the competitor, definitely you must have shortened the process of production. So at times you may have on different products, it depends on how you argue it out, different product range. So products targeting different consumers. Some of them targeting people who have money, and maybe that is now differentiation focus, and others targeting people who may not have, who may not be having, who may not be rich. That is now cost focus. So that combination may work on different product range. Then I'm told to repeat question 2B. That is question 2B, of which, so we are told to discuss the 4 hierarchical levels. So let's go back there. That is the question I'm told to repeat is of May 2017, question 2B. May 2017, question 2B. So that's what I'm repeating. We are told to discuss the 4 hierarchical levels of strategy. It happens at 4 levels. It happens at 4 levels. It happens at the corporate level. It happens at the business level. It happens at the functional level and the operational level. So those are the 4 levels of strategy. And that's what we've been discussing. So I think we are okay. I can't see any other question. We can proceed to look at so we are done with the introduction. We move to strategy formulation. And at the strategy formulation, the very first thing we are going to discuss is environmental analysis. So the very first step in strategy formulation is environmental analysis. So that's the very first step. We start with environmental analysis. From environmental analysis, we move to generating organizational mission and vision. So that's the next thing that we are going to look at, generating the organizational mission and vision. And the third step is generating goals and objectives, and development of corporate and the business strategies. So the very first step, which is going to consume today's class, is environmental analysis. The second step we are going to do is mission and vision, coming up with the mission and vision of our business. Then we also come up with goals and objectives, goals and objectives, goals and objectives. And then we come up, once we come up with goals and objectives, then we also come up with corporate and business strategies. Corporate and business strategies. So those are the steps. Those are the steps in strategy formulation, from environmental analysis to generating organizational mission and vision, to generating organizational goals and objectives, then development of corporate and business strategies. And when we come to most of these things, you are familiar with them. Environmental analysis, we've already discussed something. Mission and vision, goals and objectives, corporate and business strategies is simply what we've discussed. Corporate strategies coming up with the business of the organization as a whole. So that's where we are going to look at the Boston Consulting Group, BCG matrix. I'm going to discuss it briefly. And then we also discuss the GE, General Electric McKinsey matrix. Those are the two tools that we use at the corporate level. Boston Consulting Group matrix and the General Electric McKinsey matrix. At the business level strategies, we are going to discuss Porter's generic strategies again. Simply, that's what we're going to discuss. So at the corporate level, we use BCG matrix. And at the business level, we use the Porter's generic strategies. So that is what we're going to discuss. So for today, we are going to look at environmental analysis. Environmental analysis. And if you can remember, we defined it. It involves monitoring information from both internal and external environment so that this information can be communicated to the relevant persons in the organization. So it involves scanning information, scanning for information in the environment, scanning for relevant information in the environment so that we can communicate this information to the relevant persons. So why do we need to do this? Why do we need information? Why do we need this information? Why do we need to keep scanning the environment? Why do we need to keep scanning the environment? So we need to ask ourselves that question. So reasons for environmental analysis. Reasons for environmental analysis. What are the reasons for environmental analysis? One is that we do environmental analysis. Reasons for environmental analysis. Why do we do environmental analysis? So that's what we're asking ourselves. When we get this information, it's necessary, that information is necessary for decision making. We are supposed to have this information for decision making. So it's necessary for decision making. We need that information for decision making and strategic decision making. Secondly, strategic thinking. Strategic thinking. What is strategic thinking? It inspires the management. It gives the management the information on business gaps they may capitalize on. So from scanning the environment, we are able to get information that is necessary for you to be able to utilize to take advantage of the business gaps that may be available in the environment. You get information on business opportunities that you can exploit, The third reason why you do environmental analysis is to enable the organization to identify the opportunities, to enable the organization to identify opportunities in the environment, and also to identify threats in the environment, and finally, it also enables the organization to understand its weaknesses vis-a-vis those of the competitor. So I want to say this, when it comes to SGE paper, you are supposed to know that at this level, we're in section 5, we did a more or less similar paper to SGE in section 1, entrepreneurship and communication. With entrepreneurship and communication, you would accept brief answers. But then in SGE paper, you are supposed to be detailed. You come up with a point and give out examples. Try to go down and give out examples. For instance, I'm going to do a question that was there in the last sitting, talking about importance of SWOT analysis. A student would say, identify strengths, identifying weaknesses, identifying opportunities, identifying threats. So that is 5 marks. And you end up putting question marks to what he has said, because he's not communicating to you. I would expect somebody to tell me, even if you don't have the right vocabularies, because anyway, the vocabularies were to do with identifying the core competencies. Talk about identifying strengths, and then go beyond and say these strengths may include differentiated technology. For instance, we may have technology that is not with the competitors. And that's why I said it's always good to do this paper in a given context. For instance, let's say Safaricom was to do a SWOT analysis vis-a-vis their competitors. The strengths they would identify, they have a huge customer base. They are able to enjoy economies of scale. So those are some of the strengths that I would even expect in your SG paper. These strengths may include huge customer base, technology. Some of the strengths may also include economies of scale, enjoying economies of scale. Those are some of the strengths that you are able to identify. Then if you say number 2, an organization is also able to understand its opportunities. And what is an opportunity? Though we shall reach there, an opportunity can also be that weakness of the competitor, and may include, you may talk about the poor technology or the poor network coverage. For instance, sometimes you try to use, because now I'm so sure you're using a lot of internet. There are some of the service providers that you will try to get internet from, and really it is totally frustrating. And those are the opportunities of Safaricom, because anywhere you use Safaricom, it is good, it's excellent. And those are some of the opportunities they're able to identify. So you need to be more elaborate. So when I am discussing, I would expect in the exam or in the class that we are going to do, don't give me brief answers. You highlight the answer and then detail it. Give it in detail so that you communicate. Let's communicate. And that's why it's good that you communicate or you do this paper in a given context. From today henceforth, be that strategic planner of your business. So that if you don't start from environmental analysis, then know that you're doing something wrong. Anything that you do, you must do it strategically. So those are some of the reasons for environmental analysis. Then we also ask ourselves types of business environment. When we talk of the types of business environment, we have 2 types of business environment. One of the types is internal environment. And the second one is the external environment. The internal environment is simply the environment which the management has control over. For instance, the management has control over the organizational policy. The management has control over the mission statement. The management has control over the organizational structure from your handout, organizational culture, leadership policy, organizational values and beliefs, because it's internal. So the management has control over those factors. So they are within the organization. Then we look at the external environment, and the external environment is the environment that is outside the organization and the management has no control. The management has no control over the legal policies. It has no control over the economic inflation, economic stagnation. The management has no control over what is happening, the economic stagnation that has been caused by coronavirus. So those are some of the external environmental factors. And under the external environment, we may have micro. Under micro, we use 5C to understand it, and we may have macro environmental factors. The macro environmental factors, we use PESTEL to understand it. So we have micro. Micro, we may use the 5C. And the 5C, we have the 5C, we have the consumers. We have the consumers. We have the competitors. We have the competitors. We have the creditors. We have the company. We have the company. And finally, we have the community. We have the community. Under PESTEL, we are going to discuss PESTEL later. It's political, economic, social, technological, ecological, and legal environment. So those are some of the models that we are going to discuss. So up to that point, I want to pick questions. I want to pick questions. I want to pick questions from you to see whether you have questions. Kindly repeat explanation. That one I've already answered. So I can see most of you are saying they have understood. So we have understood issues to do with the internal and external environment. And internal, it's micro. External, we may have micro and macro. Models of environmental analysis. Models of environmental analysis. So when we are doing environmental analysis, we use certain models. When we are doing environmental analysis, we use certain models. We use certain models. So these are the models that we are going to discuss. We are going to discuss those models. So for us to understand the environment, we use SWOT analysis. We use SWOT analysis. Number two, we can also use PESTEL analysis. Number three, we can use Porter's 5 forces analysis. Porter's 5 forces analysis. And number four, we can use SOA model. We can use SOA model. And number five, we can use 5C analysis. We can use 5C analysis. So those are some of the tools. Those are some of the tools. Those are some of the tools that we use. So we are going to start with the SWOT analysis. We are going to use with the SWOT analysis. When it comes to SWOT, definitely we are looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. What is a strength? What is a strength? A strength is a positive internal condition. So strength and weaknesses are internal. Opportunities and threats are external. So meaning that strength is a positive internal condition, weakness is a negative internal condition, opportunity is a positive external condition, and threat is a negative external condition. So when we look at the SWOT analysis, we need to see November 2019 question 2B. We see how it was framed. It's good that we keep on asking ourselves these questions. So November 2019 question 2B. So let's move to that question. November 2019 question 2B. November 2019 question 2B. So the question framed, the question is framed. The question is framed. we are told to justify the use of SWOT analysis in strategic management. Justify the use. Why do we use SWOT analysis in strategic management? In trying to answer that question, from your handout, that's page 5, one of the points is that we are trying to understand the importance of SWOT analysis. And I say that if somebody said it helps an organization to identify its strength and elaborate, then that's a mark. To identify the opportunities, the threats, the weaknesses, and give examples, powerful examples, weaknesses, which are these weaknesses that you are able to identify. Then we can talk about it helps an organization achieve core competencies. It helps an organization achieve core competencies. What is a core competence? What is a core competence? So it helps an organization to achieve core competencies. So then we need to ask ourselves, what is a core competence? We need to ask ourselves, what is a core competence? So what is a core competence? What is a core competence? Core competence. A core competence, when we talk of the core competence, it's simply the resources and capabilities of an organization that gives an organization competitive advantage. So when you talk of core competence, it is resources and capabilities that give an organization competitive advantage. So that question, definitely we are now looking at justifying the use of SWOT analysis. And in justifying it, we have said that it enables an organization to identify core competencies. Someone else may have said identify the strength, which is okay. But then as long as you elaborate strength, whether you use the word strength or core competencies, you have to elaborate and give examples. Now, another question tested students whether they understand the word core competence. And you need to see it. That was in November 2018, question 3A. So move to your past papers, November 2018, question 3A. November 2018, question 3A. November 2018, question 3A. It was 1 mark. That 1 mark is very important. So we are told in the context of business environment, and citing a relevant example, explain the term distinctive competency. So distinctive competency is the same as core competence, and we say that these are the resources and capabilities that give an organization strategic advantage or competitive advantage. So that one is answered. That question was also there in May 2017, question 3A. So we move to May 2017, question 3A. May 2017, question 3A. 3A2, question 3A2. So let's see it. We are told, explain the following terms as used in strategic management. So 3A2, we are told to explain the word core competence. And we say that core competence simply means the resources and capabilities that give an organization strategic advantage. Is it your technology? That is you have superb technology. You may have a huge customer base. For instance, if you ask yourself what gives Safaricom competitive advantage, definitely is the strong customer base. And that strong customer base is the one that helps them to gain economies of scale and even lower the cost the cost of calling compared to their competitors. you can also be able, whenever you have Safaricom, calling someone through Safaricom, you'll not have challenges. Even if he's in Marsabit, then you can be able to communicate. Those are some of the core competencies of an organization. The resources and capabilities. It has a huge capital base. What gives Citizen TV a competitive advantage? So those are the core competencies of a firm. And you can achieve these core competencies, for instance, through specialization. Organizations that do specialization gain core competencies because they are able to focus on one area of production. So we are going to discuss that later. So the second one, it enables an organization understand its strategic fit. Enables an organization understand its strategic fit. Enables an organization understand its strategic fit. And we need to ask ourselves, what is strategic fit? What is strategic fit? What is a strategic fit? So when it comes to strategic fit, that is where the match between resources and opportunities. And you find that when it comes to SWOT analysis, it would help us to understand strategic fit. How? Because you are able to understand your strength and see whether these strengths that you have, can they be able to help you exploit the opportunities in the environment. So that is where an organization is matching its resources and capabilities with the opportunities in the external environment. So the resources and capabilities, those are your strengths. Then, can you be able to use your strengths to explore the opportunities that you have in the environment? Because you may have an opportunity, but definitely you are not able to exploit it because your strengths do not allow you. For instance, Kenya, we have oil in Turkana, but we've not been able to exploit it because we do not have the financial muscle. So, and that is where maybe we need to seek strategic alliances with the countries that have the capabilities to explore this oil. So meaning that there is no strategic fit. So strategic fit is where resources and capabilities match with the opportunities in the external environment. And definitely the SWOT analysis enables us to understand our strengths and opportunities and see whether there is a match between these strengths and the opportunities in the environment. So that is what we talk about strategic fit. The third importance of doing SWOT analysis, is that we are able to understand both internal and external environment. We are able to understand both internal and external environments. So look at most of the tools. For instance, we shall do a PESTEL analysis. PESTEL will only help us to understand the external environment. But this SWOT analysis is very good because it's helping us to understand both internal and external environment. And finally, fourth, it also provides information for strategic planning, And five, it also provides information to understand the threats that can be harmful to the organization. It provides early warning signs on threats that can harm the organization. Early warning signs on the threats that can harm the organization. So with those answers, and you are able to elaborate, the most important thing, elaborate your answers. Don't leave your answers hanging, elaborate them. So you are able to score all the marks. So the other question we can also handle is to do with May 2019 question 2C. It was also on SWOT analysis. May 2019 question 2C. May 2019. So we look at May 2019 question 2C. As we are told, suggest 5 ways. Suggest 5 ways. Suggest 5 ways. We are told to suggest 5 ways of improving the effectiveness of SWOT analysis. How do you improve the effectiveness of SWOT analysis? It's like now we are asked, what are the limitations of SWOT analysis? Definitely one is to ensure that we have skilled staff, to do SWOT analysis. Secondly is to also engage to engage on SWOT analysis regularly, to do this SWOT analysis as regular as possible. We need to do it as regular as possible. Also, to allocate resources, to allocate a budget. You know, a budget, as I said, these are some of the limitations. To allocate a budget to do SWOT analysis. Regularly allocate a budget so that you are able to do the SWOT analysis. Another way in which you can be able to do SWOT analysis is to ensure that we implement the findings that we find, the findings from the SWOT analysis. Anytime we do a SWOT analysis, we are able to utilize the reports or the findings that we get. And finally, another way of improving the SWOT analysis is also management support, to allocate time to do SWOT analysis, among other ways that you may come up with. So up to that point, I want you to ask questions. So we proceed to the second tool, which is PESTEL analysis. The second tool is PESTEL analysis. When we talk of the PESTEL, we are looking at the political, economic, social, technological, ecological, and legal environments. So we are looking at the political. We are looking at political. Two, we are also looking at the economic. We are looking at the economic. We are also looking at the social. We are also looking at the technological. PESTEL. We are also looking at the PESTEL, ecological. And finally, we are looking at the legal environments. We are also looking at the legal environments. What are the political factors? So before I start a business, I'm not going to start a business in Somali. Because why? Because it's politically unstable. So when I'm starting a business, I need to start my business where there is political stability. Where is there political stability? Where there is political goodwill? And how do you gain this political goodwill? Sometimes that's why you can see most of these huge organizations, they are contributing towards the COVID-19 fund, because they want to be in good terms with the government. So they want to achieve that political goodwill. I need to look at the government regulations. They also come into play. So these are some of the factors that we need to consider when looking at the political environment. Before you start a business, you need to look at these factors. They are very important. Then economic factors. The economic factors, which are the factors that you're going to look at? You need to look at the interest rates of that country. You need to look at the economic policies. You need to look at the taxation policies. Are they punitive towards business? So you need to look at those factors. What are about the businesses to do with women and youth? Are they, so when there are such opportunities you take advantage of, AGPO certificates, are they favorable to people with the disability? So those are the economic factors that you consider. Then when it comes to social factors, you need to look at the income levels of the people. For instance, if you are doing, you want to sell phones, you do take smartphones in the village. In the village, you would find a low market. We talk about religion, the religion we subscribe to. For instance, you cannot go to sell pork in Moyale because you would not get customers. So you need to look at the social factors. There are some dresses that you cannot go to sell in the village. And there are some dresses that you cannot come to sell in Nairobi. So those long dresses, you would not sell them here. So you would have to sell them in the village. So you need to look at the social factors, the customs of the people. That is the social. Technological, the level of technology of those people. For instance, if we are introducing the online classes, there is some areas that we've had this difficult in introducing online classes with primary school students, because there are some areas they are there is totally poor technology. They do not know what is a smartphone. To tell them about Zoom, that is a very huge vocabulary. So you need to look at the level of technology of those people. Then ecological means the environmental, the natural environmental policies that we have as a country. For instance, what about packaging? Kenya has banned polythene paper bags. So those are some of the things that you need to look at. What about the garbage management systems and policies that we have as a country? The conservation of the environment. Those are the things, that is the natural environment. Then the legal policies. What are the laws in place? What are the laws in place? The legal environment of that country. Is it favorable? Even taxation laws, issues to do with the industry that you are in, the regulators. Every industry is regulated. For instance, those people in the hotel industry, today they are required to have a COVID-19 clearance certificate. So those are some of the things. It's a bit expensive to be getting a COVID-19 clearance certificate every 2 weeks. So it's going to be expensive to me because of these legal policies. Legal policies to do with the curfews, that at 7 p.m. you have to have closed your business. You know, before these legislations are put in place, these are legislations or government, these are legislations that have been gazetted. These are policies that have been gazetted by the government, and they affect any business in the long run. So those are some of the legal factors that you need to look at. So I've been able to generate some questions. I'm going to answer some questions from you. One of the question from Ms. Lete, is it possible to have that one I answered? Kindly explain the last reason for environmental analysis. So the last reason for environmental analysis, it was to do with the, so we looked at the last reason of environmental analysis. We talked about early signal of the business threats. So early signals of the business threat, these are the threats that, you know, for instance, SWOT, it helps you to know the threats that face the organization. So it gives you an early signal, risk management. You're able to start planning on risks as early as possible before these risks occur. So that is what it means. Then we are asked, in the microenvironmental factors, how does company come in? The company come in the perspective that the company itself, it needs to understand itself. For instance, its strengths and weaknesses. Internally, you need to understand your employees, the organization employees. You need to understand the resources that you have as an organization. Are we capable of exploring these opportunities as an organization, as a company? So the company, you can even do, under the company, the good thing about the 5C, it now summarizes everything, because under the company, we can do a SWOT analysis. So that is, the company itself needs to understand its strength, it needs to understand its weaknesses. Then come up again on strategic fit. And we said strategic fit, for instance, we have opportunities in the environment. Even if you as a business person, you find some opportunities in the environment. But then you look at the financial capability that you have, you are not able to take advantage of those opportunities, meaning there is lack of strategic fit. Meaning strategic fit is where resources and capabilities of the organization match with the opportunities in the environment. Resources and capabilities in the organization match with opportunities in the environment. That the resources you have as an organization enable you to explore the opportunities available in the environment. So that's what it means by strategic fit. And then we are told, kindly repeat on limitations of SWOT analysis. We talked about limitations of strategic management, but even if you asked of limitations of SWOT analysis, definitely one of them is lack of skilled staff to do SWOT, lack of a budget. The organization do not commit a budget. And definitely another one is external inflexibilities. The environment keeps on changing. We are able to identify some of the opportunities. Then all of a sudden, the environment changes. So internal inflexibilities, you may find that information, and in the long run, you find that the management, there is resistance to change among the employees. Anytime you're asked of the limitations to some of these models, talk about limitations of strategic management. talk of limitations of strategic management. Then we move to, we've looked at the PESTEL analysis. We've looked at the PESTEL analysis. We've discussed political, economic, socio, technological, ecological, and legal environments. I want to discuss Porter's 5 forces analysis. It's another tool. We've already discussed the first one, which was SWOT. We moved to PESTEL. The third one is going to be Porter's 5 forces analysis. This is the second time in this class I'm mentioning Porter. I hope you can recall the first time I mentioned Porter. I want to see your responses. Can you type for me where else I mentioned Porter so that I can see whether we are on the same page? You mentioned to me where else, type where else we mentioned Porter so that we see whether we are on the same page. We see whether we are on the same page. So I want to see where, kindly repeat. So as you type, I'm going to be answering your questions. I'm told to kindly repeat point 3 and 4 on advantages of SWOT analysis. So advantages of SWOT analysis. Point number 3, to enable the organization understand its both internal and external environment. Why is it both internal and external environment? Because SW, which is strengths and weaknesses, are internal. Strengths and weaknesses are the organization itself. Even when I talk about my strengths, it's me. My weaknesses, it's me. I am analyzing myself. Then opportunities is what is external in the environment. So opportunities and threats are external. So this is a model, unlike other models that will only help you to understand the external environment, for instance, PESTEL. SWOT analysis is enabling you to understand both internal and external environments. Then point number 4, to provide information for strategic planning. Definitely, when you're doing a SWOT analysis, you will find information to do with opportunities in the environment, that your competitor has poor technology or poor network coverage. And those are some of the opportunities that you are able to capitalize. Those are some of the opportunities that you are able to capitalize. That's what it means by providing information for strategic planning and decision making. Information is very important. And when you're doing a SWOT analysis, you're trying to gather information from the environment. So I can see Porter's generic strategy. So that is true. Where we talked about the business level, I can see that. So business level strategies include the Porter's generic strategies, gaining a competitive advantage. And that is where we talked about cost leadership, differentiation, cost focus, and differentiation focus. So this is the second time now. We are now using Porter's 5 forces analysis. Is separate from Porter's generic strategies. So I'm going to mention Porter in the entire SGE class. We're going to use Porter severally, but maximally 4 times. I'm going also to discuss about Porter's diamond. In this Porter's 5 forces analysis, he's helping us to understand an industry, whether it is attractive or not. And the question I always ask people is, you are being told to go into manufacture, to go into telecommunication industry. Somebody has come from America with the 3 billion shillings, and he wants to compete with Safaricom. Would you tell him to go into that industry? Would you tell him to go into that industry? We've had Equitel. We've had other industry people coming in to try to compete with Safaricom, and they have huge financial base, but they are unable. So according to Porter would tell them not to invest into telecommunication. Why would he tell them not to invest into telecommunication? He would tell them not to invest into telecommunication because from the environmental analysis, through Porter's 5 forces analysis, the industry is not attractive. So the Porter's 5 forces analysis answers on whether an industry is attractive or not. So it is going to help us to understand whether an industry is attractive or not. And in understanding whether an industry is attractive or not, these are the 5 forces that we are going to look at. So let's discuss one by one. So the first one we are going to discuss is rivalry posed by competitors. rivalry posed by competitors. So that's the first one we are going to discuss, rivalry posed by competitors. We're also going to discuss the second one, which is going to be entry barriers. Definitely a market where, the first one, would you tell someone, I would not invest in an industry where there is too much rivalry? I can't. Rivalry posed by competitors, it's so, we call it red ocean. It's so not attractive. Entry barriers, where there is government regulations that do not allow certain people not to do business. Like now, there are some businesses that we do not allow the foreigners to do, then that industry would be less attractive. Then threat of substitute products, threat of substitute products, threat of substitute products. Number 4, we're also going to look at the bargaining power of the buyer, the bargaining power of the buyer. We are going to see the factors that limit the bargaining power of the buyer. We are going to see the factors that limit the bargaining power of the buyer. And number 5, we are going to discuss the bargaining power of the supplier. Bargaining power of the supplier. For instance, at times we get frustrated. I hope, I'm using Safaricom because all of us use it. We get frustrated with Safaricom because sometimes we feel they are charging expensive compared to others who are maybe charging 1 shilling. However, we cannot be able to shift. We call it to switch. The word is switch. We cannot be able to switch from Safaricom and move to our competitors. Why? Because our the bargaining power of the buyer is low. There is low bargaining power of the buyer. So that is what it means, bargaining. We are going to see the factors that limit the bargaining power of the buyer. So those are the five forces provided by Porter. Rivalry posed by competitors, entry barriers, threat of substitute products, bargaining power of the buyer, and bargaining power of the supplier. So those are the 5 forces analysis that we are going to discuss. And therefore, we are going to start with the first one, which is we are going to start with this first one, which is the entry barriers. We are going, the rivalry posed by competitors. So we are going to start with the rivalry posed by competitors. And in understanding the rivalry posed by competitors, we ask ourselves, in understanding the rivalry posed by competitors, definitely a market with too much rivalry is less attractive. A market with too much competition is less attractive. I discussed it. We call it a red ocean. We call it red ocean. A market with too much rivalry, it's bloody. And therefore, we've defined the word red ocean. We defined the red ocean in the handout. And we say red oceans. So when it comes to red oceans, we define it as industries, the known market space where industry boundaries are defined and companies try to outperform their rivals. An industry with too much competition because even the tactics are known. Talk about the salon industry, maybe sometimes in the estates. Everywhere you find a salon because the industry tactics are well known. And consequently, you find so many salons in the same estate because the industry is well known. That is a red ocean. There is too much competition. There is too much competition. There is cutthroat competition. And that is why we are using the term red. Then when it comes to blue oceans, it means moving into unknown market space where there is less competition, moving into market space that has not been explored. So moving into market space where it has not been explored because probably it's highly differentiated and people do not have know-how on how to take advantage of those markets. So I'm going to look at May 2017, question 3A1 to define at May 2017. So move to your past papers, May 2017, question 3.1. May 2017, question 3.1. So we are told, so explain the following terms as used in strategic management. We have blue ocean strategy. So blue ocean strategy therefore means This is moving, it denotes moving into unknown market space where competition is low, moving into unknown market space where the competition is low. So people may not have the skills to explore that market. People may not have the skills to explore that market. So that is where the blue oceans. So blue oceans are attractive, red oceans are less attractive. Red oceans are less attractive. So we proceed, we look at the factors that increase rivalry among firms. Which are the factors that increase rivalry among firms? Factors that increase rivalry among firms. One is limited market. We may have a limited market. So when it comes to limited market, we are trying to everybody is trying to capture that market. And I feel you have seen it in this CPA industry. Everybody is trying to capture the market, doing everything. We are trying to capture you people. We are so many of us trying to capture you. So the market is so limited and everybody wants the market on his side. So that's one of the factors that increase rivalry among firms. The second one is high fixed and storage costs. The cost of running these businesses. We have to meet the cost. How do we meet the cost? By getting customers. And for us not to get customers, we have to now look for this market. So there is high cost. That is low switching cost. And I always say this with CASNEB students. Low switching cost means today you find that now, I'm so sure most of you were in other colleges. Today you're in RCM. The following day you're in Summit. The other day you're in KCE. The other day you're in Afri School. There is low switching cost means switching barriers and refer to any impediment. The customers does not have any impediment because at the end of the day, I need a certificate from CASNEB written that I have cleared with CPA Section 6. So there are no impediments. So low switching cost, a customer can move from one product to the other. And that is why when you shall reach to looking at we are going to use the word switching cost a lot. When it comes to Safaricom, there is high switching cost. And that's why it limits the customers moving from Safaricom because I'm going to move from it, I'm going to lose my M-Pesa, then I have to keep on telling everybody the way I have to, it's so and so calling. So let's say you are using Airtel, you have to keep on telling everyone, I'm so and so calling. So you find that it's funny, you changed your number. So such statements make you not to move from the service provider that you have. So that is switching cost. But rivalry, because customers can be able to move from one product to the other, it increases. You can be able to do a lot of cutthroat competition. So low switching cost. Then under this, when we talk of the rivalry posed by competitors, this is where I'm going to discuss the Ego-Ansoff matrix. Ego-Ansoff matrix. So to manage competition, so when it comes to managing the competition, we can use certain strategies to overcome this competition by using the Ego-Ansoff matrix. The Ego-Ansoff matrix, we talk of the existing product, new product, existing product, new product, existing market, new market. In the exam, I hope you write the whole word. You don't write the initials the way I have initialized. So existing product, new product, existing market, new market. When you take your existing product, in the existing market, you are taking your existing product in the existing market. We are trying to see the way to even increase to gain some of the ways even to gain competitive advantage if it's not specifically to do with the porter. Definitely, or even to grow the strategies. Though growth strategies, we're also going to discuss them later. But according to Ego-Ansoff, we have taken your existing product in your existing market. That's what we call market penetration. Meaning your product has not been really known in the market. You are trying to penetrate, to let everybody know you that we are existing. Which are the strategies do you use to achieve market penetration? For instance, you can do aggressive advertising. You advertise a lot. You can give discounts. You can give aways, free trials. Sometimes you can give free trials. You can rebrand. Anything that helps you to capture that market. Price reduction. Those are some of the strategies that help you to achieve market penetration. Then you can also take your new product in the existing market. New products so you develop for them new products. For instance, we are training CPA. We can start training CIFA and DCS, though we also train. We can develop new products for them. That's what Ego Ansoff call it, product development. Product development. Then we can also have an existing product in a new market. Existing product in a new market. So meaning our products are only for instance, in our case, we were only training in Nairobi. Now we are training even in Rwanda. We have students in Rwanda, we have students in Western, we have students across the country. So that is, we took CPA classes to new markets through online classes. That one is market development. We are developing new markets. We are developing new markets. And now we can also take our new product in a new market. We develop a new product, totally a new product to new markets. That's what we call diversification. That's what we call diversification. So those are the 4 strategies according to Ego Ansoff. You can do market penetration, market development, product development, and diversification. Let's move to a past paper question. Let's move to a past paper question. May 2019 question 2B. May 2019 question 2B. May 2019 question 2B. May 2019 question 2B. So we need to look at it. May 2019 question 2B. So it asks, the Ansoff matrix provides a way of generating directions for corporate strategy. With reference to the above statement, evaluate the 5 limitations of each of the 4 strategies in the Ansoff matrix. So meaning that you have to know the 4 strategies before you answer the challenges or the limitations of each of the 4 strategies. So they are asking, so the question asks the 4 strategies, the 4 limitations to the 4 strategies. So when it comes, so in regard, so the way you should have answered that question, in regard to market penetration, for instance, which are the challenges? You may not have a budget to execute the market penetration strategies, to do aggressive advertising. Definitely the examiner also wants to know, to see whether you understand the 4 strategies. In regards to developing new products, you need to do some research, and you may not have skilled research staff. And therefore that also becomes a limitation. When it comes to developing new markets, what's the challenge there? The market distribution channels, lack of market distribution channels in developing new markets, lack of market distribution channels. And when it comes to diversification is very risky. It's very risky because you don't understand the product and you are going into new markets. It's a very risky undertaking. So market penetration, you may lack the budget. Product development, you may not have the skilled research staff, because when it comes to product development, you need to do research. When it comes to market development, it's to do with developing new market channels and the distribution channels, which you may not have, and diversification is a very risky undertaking. So that's it. So we were looking at the first. Note that we are looking at the Porter's 5 forces analysis, and the first point is the rivalry posed by competitors. So when the competition is too stiff, the market becomes unattractive. When the competition is too stiff, the market becomes unattractive. And that market which is stiff is what we are referring to as the red oceans. The market which is unknown because people may not have the skills to exploit is what we are calling the blue oceans. And moving into such markets, that's what we are calling the blue ocean strategy. So the second factor is entry barriers. And when we talk of the entry barriers, we are looking at the government regulations. We are looking at the barriers and challenges which prevent new players, the barriers and challenges which prevent new players who want to operate in the market. For instance, patent, the product has been patented. Patent, you know, it's new. I have an innovation, I go and patent it. No one else can use that innovation. That one becomes an entry barrier. So a market with entry barriers is less attractive. Government regulations, for instance, there are government regulations that bar foreigners from operating certain businesses in Kenya or Rwanda, because those businesses should be operated by the Kenyans. So that one becomes an entry barrier, and therefore the market becomes less attractive. Brand loyalty. Brand loyalty, for instance, people prefer our lecturers, and consequently, they are so loyal to them, and that one has become a challenge, has become a challenge and an entry barrier to new players in the industry. Economies of scale. Economies of scale, Safaricom has economies of scale, so a new player coming to compete with them will find it hard to compete. Then we have lack of capital base. You may not have the funds. It also becomes an entry barrier, lack of capital base. We also have high switching costs. And I give you the example of switching costs. I don't want to use another service provider, because anyway, people have become familiar, know that this is my phone number. And maybe when I start using a new phone number, I have to keep introducing myself. This is when, so that is, so those are the costs that I will incur. The costs that I will incur, the impediments, the barriers that make me not to move from one product to the other. And patent and proprietary rights, I had talked about it, and monopoly, people monopolizing a business. Monopolies have been created, and those monopolies are also a barrier. They are entry barriers. So I want to pick questions. I can see Mwalimu kindly repeat the explanation for ego-Ansoff matrix. So the explanation for ego-Ansoff matrix, I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to repeat it. So the explanation for ego-Ansoff matrix, we are looking at ways, for instance, which the industry, to pick a business that you have. That business, not everybody who is consuming your services is at now. No, not everyone. So the existing product that you have is not being consumed by the existing market. So you need to do a lot of market penetration. So market penetration is to even start moving from one. So for instance, where we talk of recruiting direct sales, you move to the people themselves and you start explaining to them about your product. That is now taking your existing product in the existing market is what we are referring to as market penetration. We are trying to see the strategies that we can use to even grow our business according to ego-Ansoff. Ego-Ansoff is now the person who came up with these 4 strategies. One of the strategies he talked about growing or even response to competition is market penetration. And market penetration is where now we take our existing product to our existing market. And we can use several strategies, including discounts, reducing prices. Hey, people see, so this one is 80 shillings, this one is 78 shillings. So I'm going to buy this of 78 shillings. We are trying to penetrate into your market. You can give free samples. Hey, nanitamu, it's sweet, so I'm going to still buy that one. You can rebrand and aggressive advertising, among other strategies. You can also, in response to rivalry, according to ego-Ansoff, or even to grow your business, you can develop new products. So development of new product, you take them to your existing market. New products, you take them to your existing market. That's what is product development. You develop new products for existing market. This is what is product development. Then the other, so new product development, you need research staff. And that's why we said one of the limitations is having skilled research staff is a limitation. Market penetration, we talked about a budget. You need a budget to do market penetration. Then existing, you can take your existing product to new markets. My product is in Nairobi. I take it to Eldoret. I take it to Nakuru. I take it to Thika. I take it to Busia. I take it to Kakamega. I'm developing new markets. New markets for my existing product. That is market development. So if I have, like, let's say, I'm selling something, I can take it to new markets. That's what we're referring to as market development. And I can totally develop new products for new markets. That is what is diversification. That's what is diversification. So the limitations, according to the question we had in May 2019, question 2B, with the market penetration, we may lack a budget. With the product development, it requires skilled research staff, which we may not have. With the market development, we need market distribution channels, which we may not have. Diversification is a very risky undertaking because this is something that we have never done, and we are taking it to new markets. So it's a risky undertaking. So I hope that one is understood. Moving to the next, so the entry barriers was the second factor according to the Porter's 5 forces analysis. Then we move on to look at the threats posed by substitute products. Threats posed by substitute products. Substitute products is a different product having the ability. It's a different product having the ability. It's a different product having the ability to satisfy customers' needs the same way as the product it had. And the availability of substitute products definitely make the industry less attractive. It makes the industry less attractive. And finally, we have not finally, but bargaining power of the buyer. So a buyer, where a buyer is able to bargain, the industry becomes less attractive. And what makes a buyer, for instance, what makes you to bargain with service providers? Well, yenu ni 4,000, kuna kwingine tunachajiwa 3,000. So you find that, how do we defend ourselves? We tell you, ours, that 500, we are highly differentiated. We have good lecturers. We are doing live classes. There is no live classes. So meaning that products that are less differentiated, when products are less differentiated, they make the buyer to have a bargaining power. And when it comes to bargaining power of the buyer, they make the industry less attractive. It makes the industry less attractive. And that's why we are saying that issues to do with, look at Safaricom, we can't bargain with them. Why? Because maybe issues to do with differentiation, because M-Pesa differentiates their product from others. Their high network coverage also differentiates their product from others. So when it comes to bargaining power of the buyer, one of the factors from the hurdle to have factors that increase the bargaining power of the buyer include monopsony. Monopsony means I'm the only buyer. So too many sellers and one buyer. And when it comes to too many sellers and one buyer, they also, that monopsony factor increases the bargaining power of the buyer. Because I'm the only buyer, definitely I have to bargain. The low switching cost. Low switching cost means I can move from your product and move to and get the other. So if you sell to me this book at 400 shillings, and the competitor is selling it at 350, and the content is the same, I can then buy from him. So low switching cost increases the bargaining power of the buyer. Then backward integration threats. I'm going to talk about this in the next class, but integration threats, backward integration, there is the vertical integration threats. And when it comes to backward integration threats, this is the threat to take over the functions previously provided by the supplier. I have to illustrate this despite the time. So I want to illustrate about integration. I want to illustrate about integration so that you understand the concept of backward integration threats. We are going to discuss it at the growth strategies a firm can undertake. And there are 2 questions that have been tested on that, 2 past paper questions on. In the next class, that's what we're going to discuss. And when it comes to integration threats, we have, when it comes to integration strategies can either be horizontal or vertical integration. Horizontal or vertical integration. Horizontal integration, if you are to discuss horizontal integration strategies, they are well described by Igor Ansoff. Whatever we've discussed at the market penetration, market development, product development, those 3 describe what is horizontal integration. When it comes to vertical integration, it can either be forward or backward integration. Forward or backward integration. Forward integration is where functions that were previously provided by them. So now I want to illustrate it in, let's say for instance, let's give an example. There is the person you buy chapos from every morning. So this person that you buy chapatis from, she has a person who distributes the chapos for her. So she has a distributor who buys the chapatis, and she has a supplier. She has a distributor, a supplier who brings for her the flour for cooking chapatis, and the distributor who goes selling those chapatis in the estate, who sells those chapatis in the estate. So the mama chapati, if she happens to tell the supplier that I'm going to take over your functions, I'm going to be going for that uga myself, I'm going to be going for that flour myself, that's what constitutes backward integration. Backward integration is where the person takes over the functions that were previously provided by the supplier. So taking over the functions that were previously provided by the supplier. So taking over the functions that were previously provided by the supplier will therefore lower the bargaining power, will lower the bargaining power of the buyer. Then when it comes to taking over the functions that were previously provided by the distributor, now I'll be distributing these chapatis myself. That's what we call forward integration. Then another factor that increases, I'm going to explain that concept well later on, is the price-sensitive customers. Price-sensitive customers will also lower the bargaining power of the buyer, and also when the buyer purchases a significant proportion of the product. Then factors that increase the bargaining power of the supplier, let's look at them. So the supplier, bargaining power of the supplier. So look at this supplier who is also selling chapatis, who is also selling flour to the mama chapatis. So where would he have? If he has high bargaining power over the mama chapatis, that industry becomes less attractive. And which factors would increase his bargaining power? For instance, this flour that he supplies to the mama chapatis is highly differentiated. There are no substitutes. So the flour that she supplies to me has no substitutes. Then I have to depend on her. It increases his bargaining power as the supplier. And you see that one now will limit the backward integration threat. That I cannot tell her, I cannot tell him or her, I'm going to be getting this uga from someone else. So meaning now this one, it limits the bargaining integration threat of the mama chapatis, because she has to get that unga, the flour, from the supplier and no one else. Then another factor is high switching cost. Note that if the product is highly differentiated, maybe with Mama Chapo, she's going to lose customers. Hey, your Chapos were very sweet. What is happening? Because she changed the person who is supplying her flour. So she doesn't have the option to change from this Mama Chapati because from the supplier, because her unga or her flour is highly differentiated. Then another factor is a threat of forward integration. A threat of forward integration is where the supplier taking over the functions that were previously provided by the distributor. So the supplier is telling Mama Chapatis, I'm also going to be cooking chapatis. I'm also going to be cooking chapatis myself. So that is forward integration threat. So if you're not going to buy from me, I'm going to put my kiosk here next to you. I'll be cooking chapatis myself and be supplying them. So that's what is forward integration threat. And also we have suppliers' products are highly differentiated, which I've already explained. So we can look at the importance of Porter's 5 forces analysis. I want you also to be posting questions. One, it provides a framework of analyzing competition, which is true. You are able to analyze competition. It provides a framework of analyzing the operating environment of a running business. Then it can also be used to analyze how attractive. It can be used to analyze how attractive an industry is. Then it also provides the forces that shape an industry, and it also provides a basis of formulating the appropriate competitive strategies for the business. Then when it comes to limitations, it cannot be used to analyze a volatile industry, only applicable in constant stable industry, because an industry can change. You know, the external environments keep on changing, and consequently it can only be used to analyze an environment which is stable, cannot be used for volatile industries. Then it assumes that business strive only to achieve competitive advantage. The other business, the other more objectives of a firm rather than gaining competitive advantage. But with the Porter's 5 forces analysis, it's assuming that the major objective of a business existence is achieving competitive advantage, which is a limitation. It also assumes buyers, suppliers, and competitors do not relate, that they are always competing. And then it emphasizes on external important strategies like integration and strategic alliances. And finally, it does not consider non-market forces that shape a business and industry. So the time is over. So to compete on environmental analysis, that's what we shall proceed in the next class. And in the next class, I'm going also to finalize on strategy formulation. And you need to realize that that's the most important part of strategy. Strategy, environmental analysis and strategy formulation, it's a bit technical. But then when you attend classes, you are able to understand. So by the next class, I also hope that you'll also have done your assignments. That is Sugar Company Limited. I need it. Or you do those assignments and then we are able to mark and interact in the next class. So as we proceed, I'm able to see where your problems are. So we can proceed on next Sunday at 1 p.m. Thank you.